Good morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Friday, March 15th, 2013. Well, Jamie Dimon, the CEO and chairman of JP Morgan Chase, has largely emerged unscathed over the past previous years regarding accusations about big banks in the United States. Not so any longer. Yesterday afternoon, Senate investigators released a harsh portrait of the events surrounding JP Morgan Chase's huge trading loss last year, saying the bank ignored internal risk controls while Jamie Dimon briefly withheld some information from regulators. The 300-page report is sure to escalate the debate over policing Wall Street, and it may foreshadow a criminal case against employees at the center of the trading disaster. This was that incident involving the so-called London whale. A spokesman for the bank said, "We have repeatedly acknowledged significant mistakes and have never had any intent to mislead anyone." Mr. Dimon, who once was heralded as an astute manager of risk, is severely criticized in the reports. He approved changes to an internal alarm system that underestimated losses, seemingly in contrast to the CEO's earlier statements to lawmakers. Dimon is also accused of withholding from regulators details about the losses and then raising his voice at a deputy who later provided the information. There's going to be a hearing today on Capitol Hill that's going to have several former officials of the bank who are going to be testifying about this report. Well, President Obama is heading to Israel next week for his first visit as president. And in a bit of a foreshadowing in an interview with Israeli TV, he gave some information as to the American intelligence community's assessment as to when the Iranians would or could have a nuclear weapon. In an interview with the Israeli TV channel 2, he said he believes Iran is, quote, over a year or so away from being able to develop a nuclear weapon, and that the United States will use all options to stop it. Right now, he said, we think it would take over a year or so for Iran to actually develop a nuclear weapon, but obviously we don't want to cut it too close. He said they're not at the point yet where they made a fundamental decision to get right with the international community, but I do think that they're recognizing that there's a severe cost for them to continue on the path that they've been on, and that there is another door open. You can be sure that this will be topic number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in his discussions with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, here's an interesting story in Lloyd's Insurance Day today. Lloyd's apparently is continuing to call on its energy liability underwriters to provide casualty class stress tests to ensure that managing agents remain completely aware of the potential aggregations that they may face. You may recall that Tom Bolt, the performance director at Lloyd's after the Macondo disaster, asked energy underwriters to submit casualty class stress tests to the Lloyd's performance director to expressly address these concerns. Now, this was in response to the fact that the same MGAs provided coverage to various parties with interests in the Macondo well. Although BP did not buy any commercial insurance coverage, its co-venturers in the project, Anadarko Petroleum, Mitsui and Company, and Halliburton and Cameron and Transocean and Weatherford, all bought coverage from Lloyd's, and they were all involved in the same disaster. Consequently, the potential aggregate exposure and subsequent payouts for the underwriters was quite high. Insurance Day understands that despite complaints about Bolt's edict 3 years ago, these reports have continued to be submitted to Lloyd's on a regular basis. In the United States, QBE has leaped ahead of Swiss Re America as the second largest U.S. reinsurer by premium written. This is according to the Reinsurance Association of America. Number 1 is still National Indemnity Company. Both of them saw substantial written premium growth, and QBE is now just slightly ahead of Swiss Re. Boeing said this morning that it sees commercial flights of its grounded 787 jets resuming, quote, within weeks, even though it had not yet pinpointed the cause of the battery overheating. The chief engineer on the project outlined a fix centered on a new design for the lithium-ion battery that has layers of safeguards to prevent overheating and measures to contain malfunctions. We could be back up and going in weeks, not months, he said. He also said he'd have no trouble flying on the plane or having his family fly on the plane. Meanwhile, the Japanese, who have been the most affected because they have the preponderance of the 50 787s that have been built so far, say that it's too early to estimate when the Dreamliners could resume operations, despite Boeing's announcement. They indicated that, quote, "At this time, we are not yet in a position to say when flights will restart." In the United States, the governor of the state of Michigan has chosen an emergency financial manager for Detroit, finalizing a state takeover of the city's financial situation. The governor, Rick Snyder, said yesterday he had chosen Kevin Orr, a lawyer and bankruptcy expert, and has given him full powers to control all of Detroit's spending. Detroit has lost 250,000 people in the last 10 years alone. Its population went from being the 4th largest in the United States now down to, I think, about 13 or 14. The number of dead pigs found in the Wangpei River now leading into Shanghai has now risen to 8,354. Local authorities retrieved another 809 dead pig carcasses today. The Shanghai municipal government continually now assures the city's 23 million residents that the water remains safe to drink. However, the population is quite worried about water contamination from swollen and rotting pig carcasses in the Wangpo River. The dead pigs are believed to be coming from farms upstream in neighboring Zhejiang province. A surge in pig dumping has followed police campaigns against the sale of pork products made from diseased pigs. This just gets worse and worse and worse. So you would dump the dead pig, if it's diseased, into the river, which is used as a feeder to the water system for a city with 23 million people. Wow. Have a good weekend, and if you're in Shanghai, use that bottled water. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. If not, we'll see you Monday.